everyone. Welcome back to Snack Chats with TLB. I'm Sarah, and today I'm here with Kailyn. And Kailyn, what are we chatting about today?
Today we're going to talk about fiber. Yeah.
Awesome. Great topic.
Yeah.
All right, so we're just gonna kind of give like a basic outline of like what is fiber, what's the role it plays in our body, why
Mhm.
is fiber needed, and then a few disclaimers at the end of like, obviously there's going to be some populations where these recommendations or like kind of the advice we're giving might not apply, which is totally fine. So we'll go over all of that.
Yeah, I think like some of what we're going to talk about is just for like general info, knowledge, and recommendations. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of variability in fiber needs for people. So, of
Yeah. Yeah. We always joke in these YouTube videos that it's like there's so much nuance, right? It's like if
course.
and or but like
And
we're always making
maybe
disclaimers.
sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all right, cool. Well, let's start with let me just I'm pulling up my notes because I don't want to miss anything. But
Okay.
yeah, let's just start with like what is fiber and then the different types of fiber. So do you want
Yeah.
to take it away?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So I guess like putting it simply, fiber is actually a type of carbohydrate,
Okay.
but it's a little bit different than what we think. I think what you think about for carbohydrates, right? We think of it as like it's a part of carbohydrates and it has a different role than most carbohydrates do. So fiber actually does not fully break down or digest, unlike other carbohydrates. So totally different role than when we think about carbohydrates for energy. Fiber doesn't provide energy because it can't fully digest, but it has a lot of important roles because it can't fully digest and because it can't fully break down, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's found only in plant-based foods. So that's kind of the brief umbrella overview of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll go over types of fiber and then what foods that's found in. But yeah, like you said, it's like it's only in plant-based foods. So that's gonna be fruits, vegetables, whole grains, potatoes, beans, legumes, lentils, all of those foods. So yeah, we're not gonna find it in meat or fats or fish or anything like
No
that.
animal proteins, there are no animal sources.
Mhm.
Yeah, so only in plants. And yeah, the big thing is it basically one of the biggest things it does, right, is does a lot in the digestive tract because it can't fully digest. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, do we want to talk about types of fiber?
Yes. Okay,
Okay.
so there are two types of fiber. We have soluble fiber and insoluble. So the way I explain soluble fiber is that it dissolves in water or absorbs water, right? I don't know, I like to use the example of chia seeds, right? If you let chia seeds soak for a while, they almost like become this like I
Oh,
love it. You're prepared.
my favorite fiber. Keep going.
Yes. They almost like become like this little like gel like seed, right? Versus just when you just take them out of the package raw, right? They're just tiny little seeds,
Right.
but they do end up absorbing water and become that gel like substance. So the why this is important is because in our bodies, soluble fiber, it helps to kind of slow down digestion. It helps also like hydrate our bowels, which is really important, right? Like we need them to be hydrated so that they can move through.
Lubricated. Hmm.
Yes, absolutely. Move through our body efficiently. They can also help to stabilize blood sugar because of those effects and can potentially help to lower cholesterol. I believe it's like cholesterol will essentially like kind of stick to that gel-like substance. And so when we are excreting, having a bowel movement, some of that excess cholesterol is going with it.
Yeah, I always explain it as like it gets really sticky and gummy, right? And yeah, so anything that you're excreting, any extras, that's going to help kind of get rid of like what your body doesn't need,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, part of that is cholesterol. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's see some of the
Okay, that's
examples.
soluble, right? That's kind of the overview.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, that's the overview of soluble. Some of the foods that we're going to find soluble fiber in is going to be oats, beans, apples, and like I said, chia seeds. So,
Mhm.
again, you can kind of like see the soluble fiber in real time if you were to soak chia seeds. So, I love that example.
I always give the example of an apple too, like because most foods have, as we're going to talk about, insoluble fiber. Most foods have both, right?
Yep.
And I always talk about apples like being like the skin. When you think about
Yep.
like chewing an apple skin, it's rough and tough, and that's going to be more the insoluble. And then the inside gets a little more gummy and breaks down, right? To be a little bit in your digestive tract becomes a little more sticky. So
Hmm.
yeah, just for like a visual too.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's so helpful because we don't see it when we're
Right.
digesting the food, obviously. So it's cool to have those foods where
Yeah.
it's like, this is kind of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So awesome. Okay, so then insoluble fiber, everything we just covered was soluble fiber, right? Absorbs water,
Mhm.
and makes things a little bit more sticky. Insoluble fiber, so does not dissolve in water. It adds bulk to our stool, right? So we need the action of both. Adds bulk to our stool, helps just support regular bowel movements, right? Keeping things moving. I like to use the example of celery when I talk about insoluble fiber, right? It's like that stringy, it's not
Mhm.
digesting. You can soak it in water, nothing's happening to it. And then you had said the apple skin. Are there any other foods you like to use as an example for insoluble fiber?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like when you're kind of chewing your food, right? The more rough and tough,
Yep.
that's kind of indicating there's some insoluble fiber present when you're looking at like fruits and veggies.
Mhm.
Particular, yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. So some of the examples, whole grains have insoluble fiber, nuts, fruits and vegetables. To your point, I think most foods that are high in fiber tend to have both,
Yeah.
like end up
The
having like,
ratios will be a little different.
yep.
Some are a little richer in insoluble, some are a little richer in soluble fiber, depending on your needs. I think working with, one of us, right, we can help kind of tailor those needs based on what your body needs a little bit more of. But yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, in general, like we need both types for overall health. And we'll talk a little bit more about not only like the roles that both play, but then also like how that shows up in our body and in our health.
yeah. Yeah,
So,
I think the only other piece I like to describe, or how I like to describe insoluble fiber is it's kind of like a scrub brush in your
mhm.
digestive tract, right? It's helping kind of like clean and move things along too, right? So it is like, right, yeah, moving, creating bulk for stool like you talked about, and then also helping just um, kind of scrub the inside of your digestive tract. So thinking of it that way, another visual, but
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I haven't used that one.
yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's talk about like what fiber we've definitely covered this a little bit, but really going through like what fiber does in terms of like gut health and digestion and blood sugar and all of that. Do you want to introduce some of that?
Sure. Yeah. So as you talked about, we need both, and both
Mhm.
soluble and insoluble play a role in most of these. But some key points or some key ways that fiber helps is gut health, number one, right? So when we think about you think about like the gut microbiome, or you hear a lot about probiotics, right? And beneficial gut bacteria and all this. Fiber is what's helping keep that microbiome diverse and active and benefiting the bacterias in our intestines, right? And helping keep that active, which
Mhm.
that's a whole nother conversation about how gut bacteria is helpful, but fiber plays a big role in feeding the gut bacteria and helping create diversity and um, overall, yeah, gut health is a big thing that fiber does. Um, Another one is digestion. So prevents constipation. It's really like you mentioned, right? Like creates stool bulk and helps also move things along and excrete. So helps with regular bowel movements. Um, Another one is blood sugar balance. Do you want me to talk about that, or you want to talk about
Doesn't matter. I can talk about it. Yeah.
that?
So
Okay.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna, yeah, I mean, blood sugar balance is kind of like a huge role that fiber plays, right? We talk about that a lot, but how it, because as we talked about with the definition of fiber, right, it doesn't digest. And so in the role of blood sugar, because it's not fully digesting, it slows down
Mhm.
the absorption of glucose, right? It helps to slow down digestion and therefore slow down the glucose absorption in the blood. So that's kind of a very brief definition of what it does for blood sugar. But yeah, so that helps with like fewer spikes and crashes with blood sugar, which we're
Yep.
often talking about with
Yeah.
clients.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, do you want to go over maybe the next two?
Yeah. Well, and so I think with the blood sugar balance too, like I always encourage clients trying to get fiber roughly at each meal and snack, right? Because it's like that's going to help support that blood sugar regulation all throughout the day versus necessarily like, oh, I'm just going to have one high fiber meal a day. You can,
So
and
important.
there's so much benefit to having fiber a little bit at each meal and snack.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that. That's such a good point. Yeah. Yeah, we're looking because we're going to talk about, right, like total fiber needs for the day. And it's so important that we give some, I guess, like some attention to like how to
Mhm.
build that in slowly and steadily throughout the day. Yes, versus like, oh my gosh, it's the end of the day. I haven't gotten much of my
Yeah.
fiber. Let me just pack it all in. It doesn't actually benefit you in the same way as when you're just like
Right.
having small amounts throughout the day.
Yeah.
Very good. And for
Yeah.
blood sugar too. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Something else we touched on a little bit so far, but helping to lower LDL cholesterol potentially, right? So again, when we're consuming both types of fiber, we're getting that soluble fiber and we're getting that sticky substance that is potentially kind of gripping onto excess LDL cholesterol and excreting that. And again, that's why it's so beneficial to be having fiber on a consistent basis, right? Like just having it one day isn't necessarily going to like excrete all that excess LDL cholesterol. It really is over time, like the body is functioning in that way and helping to get rid of excess and all of that. So can be beneficial for heart health.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's definitely like a long term, right? I think building that awareness or like, what are my fiber sources? How can I build these in if that is a concern or if that is like a priority of, like looking at fiber-rich foods for cholesterol support, then yeah, it is like a longer term process, right? And I think that's what we talk about, like the patterns over time, right? And how building in a little bit and making those small changes and committing to them over time can really help with things like lowering LDL. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then finally, I think it can help with just overall fullness and satisfaction throughout the day. And
Mhm.
I think that goes back to that blood sugar balance, right? When we're not having these spikes and crashes, and our blood sugar is more of this like steady up and down throughout the day, which is kind of what we want it to look like. It just helps keep us full, right? Slowing down digestion. We're not needing to eat so often because yeah, things aren't moving super quickly, right? We're not immediately absorbing that glucose when we have fiber to then immediately need it again for more energy.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Again, that like consistency and
Yep.
have small amounts throughout the day.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's talk about fiber sources. We touched on a few, but we can kind of get into more detail there.
Yeah. So as we said, like any plant, our fiber only comes from plants, right? So we're looking at like fruits. Most also we're going to talk about just more like the higher fiber
Mhm.
sources, right? A lot of we can go through every fruit right now and there's fiber present. Some of the big ones, raspberries are very high, all berries,
Yep.
raspberries, blueberries, strawberries. Pears are a really good one. Right? I
Mhm.
think too, for anyone struggling with constipation, pears can be a good one. Apples, bananas. Bananas tend to be a really good soluble fiber source, so looking to that if you need more of that. Vegetables, broccoli, carrots, Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
Right, a lot of that, like more like roughage that we talk about, sweet potatoes, especially with the skin, and you get a little bit of benefit of both, right? Or regular potatoes with skin.
Yeah.
Um, and then grains, so oats, quinoa, brown rice, what else? Whole grain bread,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Whole grain anything, right? Like whole grain
whole grain, yeah,
cereals and yeah.
yeah,
So any of those. Yeah, I would
mustard,
say
bran sort,
yes.
um, yeah, bran, oat, whole grain, whole wheat
Yep. Yep.
sources.
Yeah, typically, the more like refined a food is, right? So thinking about like white bread or like crackers and things like that. What the reason they are kind of like the texture that they are is because the fiber does end up getting processed out, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just like that is the nature of that food. And so yeah, that's kind of the difference between like almost that like hardiness, grittiness of like a whole grain bread versus like a white bread. That's really the biggest difference there is just that fiber isn't present in the white bread.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's like there's a place for both, right?
Yeah.
There's a place for both to exist, but kind of like, yeah, having just knowing, yeah, what actually happens in that process. You're right. Like they just remove those
Hmm.
fibrous parts to make certain products a little softer.
Yep.
Um, and then all of our beans,
Hmm.
those top tier fiber sources, right?
Yep.
So beans, all legumes, black
Hmm.
beans, lentils, pinto beans, kidney beans, chickpeas, all of that.
Hmm.
So peas and corn,
Yeah.
all
Yep.
good.
Yeah. And then nuts and seeds, which we talked about chia seeds, but
My
like,
friendly, my
yeah.
I love chia seeds because I think you can add them to so many things,
Yeah.
and that's I think an important piece of fiber is how we can add or boost up or mix.
Hmm.
Um, and chia seeds are an easy way to do that in a lot of things. So,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah. So any nut and seed,
Any nut and
flaxseed,
seed. Yeah.
almonds, whatever. They all contain some fiber. So those are a great addition as well.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's go over how much fiber we even need in a day and just some kind of tips around that, how to add it in and all of that.
Okay.
So, general guidelines is about 25 grams per day for females, about 38 up to 38 grams per day for males. This is going to vary from day to day, right? Like this is just kind of like a general average. I usually tell people like, between like 20 to 30 or
Yeah.
between like 30 to 40, right?
Like if you're
Roughly.
getting above 20, you're
Yes.
and there is such thing as too much fiber, which I know we don't have a ton of time to talk about today, but that is a real thing.
Yes.
But I think most people are not getting enough fiber, right? So I think just knowing your fiber sources and building it in slowly to get to that goal range over time is helpful. But knowing, I mean, most people, I think it's like 10 grams of fiber a day most people are getting on average. It's kind of just a general number, but yeah,
Mm.
building it up, right, to get to 20 to 30, I think is a fair recommendation.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even necessarily specify the numbers when I'm
Yeah,
talking to folks. I'm
right.
just like,
Gonna
are
happen.
you getting these foods, right? And if a lot of the times it's like every now and then. And so then we're just talking about how can we increase it a little bit. The exact grams isn't necessarily like that important, we're just kind of
No.
looking at symptoms and how our bowel movements and digestion and all of that. So I think that's the importance of working with a dietitian is we can really support you in figuring out like what is your body needing.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we definitely, I think, again, just purpose of this video too, right? Like knowing your sources and knowing like, oh, I don't really eat any of those foods, or I eat only two or three of those foods. With the help of a dietitian, we can help build that up and help. I always talk about with clients, like when we kind of do inventory management, like what foods are making their way throughout the week pretty consistently and what aren't, and like just seeing the patterns, right? And knowing where we can add or where we can kind of boost up nutrition if they want to. Um, but yeah, I think you already mentioned, yeah, so the guidelines and then I guess tips to increase fiber. Uh,
Hmm.
Starting slowly. This is super important. Obviously, we've talked about all the benefits of fiber today. And if you're noticing, like, I actually don't really get a lot of these fiber sources, we don't want to just suddenly start eating high fiber all the time, right? That can actually be overwhelming for your digestive tract. So starting slowly is super important to help aid the digestion and get your body kind of used to it and support, know what to do with those fibers, right? And drinking enough water. This one's a big one, I think, because fiber can actually backfire on the digestive part, right? If we're not drinking enough water to support it moving along. Sometimes with my clients, I'm a big visual
Yeah.
person, but I'll describe it as like a water slide or slip and slide, right? If you've ever gone down a slip and slide and the water's not
Yeah.
moving, you kind of get stuck along the way.
Yes.
This is like having a lot of, water to move it along. It just helps support the fiber to actually do what it wants to do, which is
Hmm.
help clean the digestive tract, help feed the gut bacteria, help stool, right? But when there's not enough water there, it can actually um, make things harder and make digestion not feel so great. I don't know if you
Right.
want to add to that, but
No, I think I love that visual. And yeah, I just let people know it's like there, as you increase fiber, at first there might be a little bit of cramping, a little bit of
Yeah, that's
bloating
true.
and gas and all of that.
Bowel
And
sensitivity.
yes, and it's
Yeah,
like your body's getting used to it. Increase water and just go slow with the fiber. And again, a
yeah,
dietitian can really support you in that.
yeah. Slow and steady.
Yes.
Um, I wanted to just, I guess, with the slow and steady, talk just briefly about
Hmm.
obviously there's a lot of variability with what
Hmm.
people need with fiber, right?
Yep.
Again, another benefit of working with a dietitian is we can really break it all down in like symptoms and tolerance and preferences and all of that, and help support that. But I think just want to be mindful that, with people that have like more digestive disorders, or have a lot of like intolerances and things like that, like we have to look at fiber a little bit differently.
Hmm.
And we can kind of help support, fibers that are a little easier on the digestive tract or cooking methods, right, to help, cooking vegetables versus eating raw vegetables can be a little more gentle. So for some people, especially those with digestive disorders, we have to be more mindful about, yeah, how we include fiber and what sources we're getting them from.
Absolutely. Yeah. Excuse me. And then same thing with, potentially an undernourished gut. So in whatever that looks like, whether that is an active eating disorder recovery, or some sort of chronic condition, again, just being really mindful of how we're introducing fiber, what types of fiber we're incorporating, going slow, hydrating, all of that. Like there is a lot of nuance with any nutrition topic, as we always talk about in these videos. And so definitely reach out to a dietitian for support on what your body is needing, what that can look like, and yeah, how we can meet your body's needs.
Yeah, definitely. I
Awesome.
guess the last thing I wanted to just talk about was thinking about fiber as like a way, again, that we can just like add in, right? We're not removing things, we're not changing a
Yep.
whole lot of nutrition in the other areas, but it's a way to like boost up, or I say like enhance a meal or add to, or it's just add-ons.
Yes.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. We don't ever have to cut out lower fiber foods. We're just finding what that balance is for you.
Yeah, little ways to build it in and figure that out together. Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. All right. Well, and we'll have a handout to go along with this video that will be linked below. And if you have any questions or anything, drop a comment and we'd be happy to, yeah, chat with you. So
All right.
thank you so much. Thanks for watching this video. Share it with anyone that you feel like would benefit from it. Like it, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.